just a stone's throw away from Avignon, Châteauneuf-du-Pape and Île-sur-Sorgue, bathing in the rushing waters of the Sorgue River, the Bastide Rose, run by Poppy and Pierre Sallinger, is a must for all lovers of this former domain of the Popes of Avignon. Hello and welcome to the Bastide Rose. I'd like to show you the house, which is really my masterpiece as I found it and I love it dearly. The Bastide is a kind of rural manor house with a lovely roof and lovely rounded Genoese tiles. So you're very welcome. Let's go into the house. Here we have the small reading room. So here are piles of magazines to read. You can choose whichever you wish. That's Hilary, our indoor dog. Here we have a small music room where Pierre generally comes and plays the piano for us. He loves the piano. He was a great musician. And here on the left you have my office, which gives onto the kitchen and the dining room, where today we have the great pleasure of welcoming Xavier Mathieu. Now, Xavier is a great friend of Pierre's, and he's accepted to come and make dinner for us this evening, with all Pierre's favorite dishes. So I think they're going to be working together, as Pierre and not Xavier will do the leg of lamb, and the rest will be Xavier's handiwork. Now, I've tried to keep the interior of the house as much as it was when we first found it. The Bastide Rose was a rather amusing adventure for us, as it all began with the idea of having a big house for all our children. It was to have been in the United States, but then the real estate market in the US went wild. And as I was in Provence to see a friend, I started looking for a house. And you know, the estate agents here are terrible. But I found one who was so really nice, and he showed me 4 houses which exactly match what I was looking for. And amongst these 4 houses, there was the Bastide Rose. It wasn't called the Bastide Rose at the time, it was called the Marbrerie, the Marble Works. So it used to be a marble workshop, and so we decided on this option, and I came and settled here. Later, Alexandre came along and joined us, and that's been wonderful because Alexandre is very interested in cooking. Alexandre is my son, and he was trained in the main kitchen in the Ritz when he was younger. You've met Poppy, Xavier and Alexandre. Now here is the master of the house, Pierre Sallinger.
Hello, how are you this morning? This is your coffee. Bonjour.
Hello, how are you? This is the little Bastide Rose ritual. Pierre arrives, reads the paper, says a nice good morning to me, and I bring him his coffee, and he starts breakfast at 8:30. And as this is a non-smoking house, he smokes a cigar outdoors. Actually, it's the funniest thing I ever did with the Kennedys. It was 5 months after the Bay of Pigs. And suddenly, Kennedy called me into his office at about 5 p.m. and he said, "I need something very important." So I said, "What do you need, Mr. President?" And he said, "I need some Havana cigars." "How many do you need?" I said. 1,000, he answered. "And when do you need these cigars?" I asked. "Tomorrow morning," he answered. "You need to find them this evening." And so I got down to work, and when I returned to the office the following morning, Kennedy immediately called me into his office. "How did you do, Pierre?" he said. "I did very well," I replied. "How many cigars did you find?" 1,200, I said. "Ah," he said, "that's great." And there was a paper there on his desk he then signed. It was the trade embargo on Cuba. There's a very important hospitality side to it. I'm very careful about welcoming our guests, not just "Good day, sir," or "Goodbye, sir," or "Goodbye, madam," but their whole stay. For instance, I don't call our patrons clients, they're my guests. They're my guests here. It's true they pay a bill when they leave, but that's not the main thing. What is important is the relationship you set up, a real relationship to help people when they don't really know what they're looking for. Well, we're going to begin with marrow soup. So we're going to sweat the onions with a little garlic. So everything's ready here. A touch of oil. We'll add a bouquet garni. And you can add some smoked pork rind. So into the soup, we're going to add some toasted pain d'épices, or spiced loaf, that we toast like ordinary bread. And then we'll have a layer of kaki fruit puree with balsamic vinegar, and this will be sweetened with some maple syrup. And on the toast, we'll place an escalope of pan-fried liver. Now, we got the kaki from a tree in Poppy and Pierre's garden, which is laden with fruit, all ripe and tasty. The soup is underway, and we're going to scoop out the kaki, which is not surprising here near Cavaillon, which is big melon country. There. The kaki are all ready, so we add the balsamic vinegar and the maple syrup, 3 centiliters of each, into the blender for 5 to 10 minutes. And now we must prepare the liver. I suggest pieces about this size. The kaki mixture is ready. The pain d'épices is now cooked and sliced, and we'll now complete the cream of marrow soup. It's been cooked and we've blended it, so we just need to whip it up with a little cream, and you gradually mix in the pieces of butter and you let them melt in. A touch of pepper, a pinch of salt. Then the liver needs to be slightly colored, a whitish color. Now we place the liver on some absorbent kitchen paper. We spread the kaki puree onto the toast. So there you have the cream of marrow soup, accompanied by foie gras toast with a touch of sea salt, just to bring out the flavor. Poppy is not happy with simply receiving guests at her table. She'll also show you around Avignon. On the other side of the river from the ramparts of Villeneuve Castle, there's an extraordinary view over Avignon, the city of the popes. The architecture of the papal palace is never seen to such good advantage as at this time of year, when the light is mellow and the hustle and bustle of the theatre festival have long since subsided. The Angledon Foundation is one of the sites that Poppy most enjoys visiting. Hello, Anne-Marie. It's really nice of you to have us. It's really wonderful. So after admiring the superb city of Avignon with the papal palace, here we are at the Angledon Museum, located in a wonderful Avignon house, and which I'm particularly fond of, because here one can sense the colourful character of the people of Avignon. And with Anne-Marie's help, we'll be able to visit this beautiful house, and she'll also tell us a little about Van Gogh. So here we have a magnificent example of an 18th century Avignon house with a wrought iron banister, which I find extraordinary, with its perfect proportions bearing witness to the essence of the 18th century. Jacques Doucet, who founded the museum, brought together with great sensitivity works which he believed to be representative of the 20th century. So here we are in this 19th century room, in front of this rare painting by Van Gogh, showing the Paris-Lyon Mediterranean train, which brought Van Gogh to Arles in 1888. It's a modern subject, for which he used reeds to lay on the paint very thickly. This was a very early choice by Jacques Doucet, made at a time when he was selling his 18th century collection. He went on to choose other canvases by Cézanne and then Degas, works he bought directly from the painters. When I was young and penniless, I would go to Degas' studio, or Monet's, he would say. And then Doucet moved towards his contemporaries, artists like Picasso, from whom he bought charming little pieces in the Blue period. And here you have some cubist and figurative elements with the great cubist paintings, and notably the Demoiselle d'Avignon painting, which he hung very close to this Modigliani, which has remained here. And now, in contrast, Poppy is arranged to meet some lovers of fine wine and of archaeology at the foot of the old tower on the ramparts of Châteauneuf-du-Pape. Hello, Henri. How are you? And how are you? Nice to see you here at Châteauneuf-du-Pape. It's fabulous, you see, here in the cellars of the Orchard of the Popes. Hello, Guy. Hello. How's things? Fine, fine. Well, I'd like you to show me some of your fabulous discoveries in your cellars. Oh, we're still digging. Still digging. You've got to show me that. Well, let me show you. We've got these magnificent Roman cellars. Come on, this way. There you see the bottles. And now we're in the Roman part of the cellar. Oh, it's wonderful. All my own work. I discovered it. Did you see? Look where we are. Here it was solid, filled in up to this height. Here there were ruins, and it was filled in with rubble. There was just a little passageway here to get to the large cellar that you can see over there. And it was when I was going round this cellar that I discovered what the former owner once told me, that there were vats here dating back to the Romans. So what you can see here was carved out of the rock. And what I found was that there were plaques of tannin. Look at this stone. This proves that they made wine here, that there was wine fermenting inside this vat. All these coins and notes, it's rather odd. What are they for? Well, people who came here do rather like the people of the Trevi Fountain in Rome. They toss money in. We tell them that if they manage to squeeze into the amphora, they'll win their weight in Châteauneuf-du-Pape. In fact, this is our domain, Henri's domain, the Orchard of the Popes, which produces a very small quantity of wine since it covers only about 4 acres. Now, this is a great year, 1985, that we'll be tasting. So here we have a wine which is over 15 years old. It's really a bit of a shame to drink it like this. Yes, you should drink it with game. The reflections are really beautiful. This was a late harvest wine, almost over mature. You can see the color. We will taste the more evolved notes which will start to emerge. It needs oxidation, lots of oxidation. We have wines which are rather special, every few meters or so. We have 13 in all. We obtain wines which are very different because the vine stocks are different. Between the earliest and the latest maturing vine stock, there's often a difference of a month at harvesting time. The pebbles play a very important role, these round stones which were deposited by the glaciers after the Jurassic period, when the glaciers melted, and as a result of these pebbles here at Châteauneuf-du-Pape, there's a very hilly area where we get wines which have a certain fullness, more naturally concentrated. In addition, the soil here is extremely poor. That's to say that the climatic conditions here in Châteauneuf are awful. In summer, it's like an oven. There are parts of Châteauneuf that are like the Gobi Desert. Don't go believing that you need a rich soil to make a rich wine. Quite the contrary. It's through this great suffering, what we call the breaking point, that you get the greatest vintages. Here is the plat de résistance. A leg of lamb prepared by Pierre Sallinger himself.
Je suis en train de faire le gigot.
I'm going to prepare the leg of lamb.
Là-dedans,
and I'm going to add some, now what do you call this in French?
Je vais commencer
garlic.
Avec 20 minutes.
So I'm going to start with 20 minutes,
Avec
and then I'll put the potatoes in with the lamb.
Alexandre est en train de faire.
Alexandre is doing that because it's something I organized to have with the lamb.
Le gigot. Ma première femme pouvait pas faire des choses pour le dîner.
My first wife couldn't cook, so I used to do a leg of lamb from time to time. I learned on my own. Now what do you call that? Olive oil.
Je vais mettre des oignons sur ça.
I'm going to put some onions on top of this. The potatoes are ready, Pierre?
Oui, ça c'est quelque chose
Yes,
que je vais mettre en
but I'll
20
put
minutes.
them in 20 minutes' time. Pierre simply recreates his own world everywhere he goes because his world is so strong inside of him. If he has a piano to hand, everything's fine. So you can put Pierre anywhere and he'll feel fine. Even if he's not fine, he still feels good. Now the leg of lamb. These are shoulders of lamb, not legs, shoulders. While the lamb is almost ready, I'm going to turn the spuds. That's something you have to organize at the same time as the lamb. Okay, they're almost ready. The potatoes are almost done. Just a bit more, another 10 minutes. And then they'll be cooked. So that's mine.
Oh là là.
Oh la la. There are so many guests this evening. I'll open up in 12 minutes.
On se revoit dans 12 minutes?
Okay, we'll open up in 12 minutes. 12 minutes? Okay, see you soon then. Then it'll all be ready. Okay, see you later. I'll play the piano for you. Hello. Today we're at Île-sur-la-Sorgue, the village of the antique dealers and above all the Venice of the Avignon region. So why is it called the Venice of Avignon? Well, because the town is an island surrounded by water. The river Sorgue divides it, and in the past its strong waters used to drive water mills. To begin with, they were paper mills, and then they were silk farms, and now they still harness the Sorgue for hydroelectric energy and for the farmers in the area. So water is still as important as ever it was in everyday life. And thanks to a smart decision by the mayor, we now have 350 antique dealers in the town. So let's go and see Karine Mesureur after the little Sunday antique market.
Après la petite brocante du dimanche. Comment ça va, Karine? C'est bien?
How are you, Karine? Fine.
Ça va?
Et à ce moment-là, tu as introduit Hugo.
Why don't you introduce Hugo? He was very tiny when... Oh yes, Hugo was only 7 when he had his first stall in a market, then later in an antique center, and then he went on to buy his own shop. He sells a lot of things, but he has a passion for chairs. He simply loves chairs. He simply loves chairs, but you're specialized in the 18th and 19th century. That's got a Japanese look to it. Japanese, yes, but that piece dates from 1860. We've also got a wonderful living room with some period directoire chairs. I love those balls. And here we are at Michel Bean's, the former abode of Albert Gastier, the founder of all this extraordinary expansion of the antiques trade here at Île-sur-la-Sorgue. And Michel and Catherine have a veritable passion for anything to do with Provençal fabrics. And thanks to them, we've got to know the history and tradition of costumes in the Provence area. It's handmade, as worn by the writer Pierre Loti. Oh, it's superb. So let's go next door. This is a room containing items in fabric, which we've made today using techniques borrowed from the 18th century. So you have these wonderful Indian cloths made by traditional methods out in India, using a technique that was widespread in Provence in the 18th century. These are Provençal costumes from days gone by. Everything we're about to see is traditional, made in the fabrics of yesteryear. It's really wonderful. Thanks to all Michel's research and all these books that he's written, Provençal fabrics have developed a historical and anthropological dimension. He's done some really interesting work on the whole subject. So now we're going to prepare a dessert for this evening's dinner. A vanilla ice cream accompanied by honey madeleine. And this is Pierre's favorite dessert. So to make the vanilla ice cream, first of all, bring the milk and the cream to a boil. And then you add the vanilla to give the flavor. So you bring it to a boil. And now we mix together the egg yolks and the sugar, and we whip them vigorously. I'm using a whisk, but you could just as easily do this by hand. The main thing is to get a nice homogeneous mixture. And now with a whisk, no problem. The milk and the cream are now nice and hot, and we'll mix the two together over a low flame
Pendant environ 7 à 8 minutes.
for roughly 7 to 8 minutes.
La glace à la vanille est cuite.
Now the vanilla ice cream has been cooked,
À l'aide d'une petite
so we need to strain it through a small strainer or coarse muslin. You wait until the mixture cools down a little before placing it in the sorbet machine for 10 to 15 minutes to make the ice cream ready for tasting. And now the recipe for the honey madeleine. You need 200 grams of butter, which you pour into the honey. You have the egg whites, 6 egg whites, some icing sugar, flour, and ground almonds, about 90 grams of each. And you simply mix them together. There, the whites are now ready.
On incorpore tout simplement les poudres.
And you blend in the powders, but very gently, because if you're too vigorous, the pressure makes the egg whites collapse. And once the mixture is ready,
Voilà, le beurre est prêt
Right.
maintenant. On le verse
the butter's now ready.
sur le miel,
You pour it onto the honey,
on l'enlève
you remove it,
on mélange cette partie-là.
and you mix this all together.
Et là donc, il suffit d'incorporer les deux.
You just need to blend the two together.
Voilà, la préparation est prête.
There, the mixture's ready,
On va mouler les madeleines.
and so now we can place it into the madeleine molds.
Alors, il est préférable quand même de
It's
laisser
best to allow the
reposer
madeleine mixture to settle for a while.
la pâte à madeleine, l'appareil à madeleine.
You leave it in the madeleine machine for about 2 to 3
On va
hours.
mettre ça au four maintenant.
And now we'll put it in the oven,
Et maintenant, les cannelés.
and now we'll make the
Donc,
biscuits.
pour confectionner ces cannelés, il nous faut un
To
demi-litre d'eau.
make these biscuits, we need half a liter of milk,
Les zestes d'orange hachés
we'll need some chopped orange rind, and some vanilla
avec
pods
les graines, donc qui sont égrenées.
with the seeds removed,
25 grammes de beurre
25
et
grams of
30
butter,
grammes d'amandes.
and 30 grams of
Ensuite,
almonds.
on mélange les 4 jaunes d'œufs.
And then you
les
whisk
250
together the
grammes de
4 egg
sucre
yolks
batteur,
and the 250 grams of sugar,
et le sucre. 125 grammes de farine.
125 grams of flour,
Le fait de mélanger les jaunes d'œufs battus déjà
and the fact of mixing the ready mixed egg yolks with the sugar and the flour using a spatula like this allows you to avoid getting lumps in the mixture.
Alors du temps, on va profiter pour mélanger légèrement.
Now we've got plenty of time, so we can use this to mix gently.
Vous voyez, la texture est bien liquide.
We have to make sure the consistency is nice and smooth, no lumps.
Pour mettre dans le four, c'est bien d'avoir une plaque.
And then you put them in the oven, and it's useful to have a special baking tray.
Des plaques exprès.
We
justement.
use the molds and the trays which are non-stick. So let the mixture settle for 15 minutes, and as soon as the oven is ready, pop them in for half an hour. And there you are.
Et voilà.
J'étais né à San Francisco.
I was born in San Francisco in 1925.
Ma mère était française,
My mother was French,
très rapide.
so I picked up French very quickly.
C'était en 1929.
But that was back in 1929. And then there was the Wall Street crash, and my father lost his job in San Francisco, so we had to move to Toronto.
Quand je suis arrivé à Toronto,
And when we arrived in Toronto, I was 4.5, and my mother said then, "You need to learn the piano, so I'm going to find someone to teach you piano."
piano. Alors, elle a trouvé quelqu'un qui
So
était
she
très
found me
bien.
a very good teacher,
J'ai joué mon
and I
premier
played my
concert
first concert in Toronto at the age of 6.
Quand j'avais 13 ans,
When I was 13, I decided to compose something very interesting, but I didn't give it a title.
donner le nom de ça. Et il y a 5 ans,
But then 5 years ago,
le 80
we celebrated the 80th birthday of Sarge Shriver, Sarge Shriver, who was with me at the White House.
Et alors j'ai joué le jeu.
So I played the piece for him. And when Sarge Shriver said to me, "What was that called?" I answered,
C'est Shriver Love.
"Shriver Love."